Hey YouTube, this is Nashtaters. Welcome back to another episode of Friday Free Thinking. And today's topic, I actually want to bring this up because I think this is a hot topic. And I think many people are thinking about this topic because, well, it's almost Christmas and there's a huge chance that the companies might be giving us brand new units on global because those units are being released on Japan. And there's been some reruns of some of the older Christmas units on Japan. And it's a possibility that maybe, just maybe, they'll give us those 3 units on global, but perhaps they're a little bit fixed version because of the fact that they're bringing Job EX25 for those 3 units. And I think it kind of nicely segues to what the main topic of this video is going to be. And that is going to be our limited/collaboration units worth your time. So as you can see, I have little Leela here on my home page. She's definitely a unit that I didn't anticipate coming to global, but I'm glad that they did bring her because I ended up spending a couple of pennies on her because, well, as many of you guys probably saw in my older videos, I never actually got to summon her. In fact, I had to use the full pity system in which you can just simply purchase the first copy of the unit from the shop once you summon enough times. And of course, I wasn't too happy about it. But end of the day, it is what it was. I did want her, I got her, and I guess I can only complain because it was in hindsight that I didn't get her from the summons. But then again, all my luck with limited units have been actually very good up to that point. So today's topic is obviously going to be, are limited units going to be worth it for you and perhaps something you've been thinking about? Now, one thing I always wanted to do in terms of playing this game when I first started playing was that I anticipated that the game was going to bring us a lot of collaboration units and perhaps some special edition units like Little Leela and perhaps the Christmas units. But one thing I told myself was, since I was going to be spending money, I really wanted to make sure that I get the units that I liked. And most of those actually are coming from limited time units / collaboration units. And I think that is because of the fact that that's how this game attracts folks, right? People signed on to play this game when Final Fantasy 15 was out, and then followed by Final Fantasy Tactics, and of course later on we got Final Fantasy 1. We're still working on Final Fantasy 4, and chances are we're going to be getting Final Fantasy 10 sometimes early next year, and then of course perhaps you can name it, they're probably going to bring it to us. And I think that's what the attraction is to this game. Now I know there's a lot of good units in this game that they're bringing to us, but many of those units are either unique or original units to the game. And of course, they're going to be the ones from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius because it does share pretty much the same world as Brave Exvius. And so here's how I'm looking at it, right? Originally, I only wanted to go after limited units, and I was actually doing pretty good. I have quite a few number of units that I felt like I was able to get lucky on, right? You got, of course, Warrior of Light, Agrias, Ramza, Orlandu, and then of course I have as well, let me see here, Mustadio. So all in all, like, I went after every single unit that I had some sort of attachment to or that I felt like would benefit my account quite a bit. But unfortunately, when they announced Job EX25 quest, that's when I started thinking about redoing my strategy. I don't know how it's actually going to work out in terms of limited units, right? These collaboration units. Are we going to have to wait for a rerun of the collaborations and get the extra shards? Now, my understanding is on the JP server, you can actually obtain limited unit shards from the barracks, a brand new feature they've recently added. So, but I think it does take an awful long time to get the number of shards in order to activate Job EX25. But the thing is, you don't necessarily have to take each individual unit to level 120 in order to draw some of the potentials out of those units. I think that's the important thing to understand. You have to value whatever is that you value on your own scale. And I think when you answer that question yourself, limited units are going to be worth it to you regardless of the price that you have to pay. said a few months ago that I was going to go after Kane, and that was going to be the only unit, and maybe go after Cecil because I was really just going after the weapon, the vision card, and Kane as a whole package. And unfortunately, a lot of it got changed, right? First and foremost, Cecil was given to us for free, which was a very nice, pleasant surprise. And then, of course, Kane came shortly after. Now, I believe many people didn't anticipate Final Fantasy IV to be coming around that early anyways. So perhaps that threw a little wrench in people's planning. But a lot of people are still went after Kane, and they got him, and I'm happy for those folks. And for those folks who didn't get him, I sincerely apologize and hope you don't think too much of this situation. But all in all, I feel like there is definitely a lot of stress involved when you're given that 2 to maybe even 4 weeks of time frame to try to get the units. And I think ultimately it boils down to desire and actual need. Now here's how I look at it. I always use the analogy that a Lamborghini looks great, right? A hot girl or a hot guy walking down the street, or whoever you stumble upon on the internet, whatever, they're all like eye candy and they look great, and you want them at that specific moment because you're tunnel visioning yourself at that specific moment in time. But we all understand that even if you can afford it, those things are just luxuries and they're toys. And ultimately, that's what this game boils down to. I've always emphasized that you have to figure out what is it that you hope to obtain from this game. Do you seek pleasure from PvP? Do you seek pleasure from doing all the accomplishments that the PvE has to offer you? Until you figure all that out, you probably realize that you don't actually need every unit in this game. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. Now I think when you look at collaboration units / limited units, a lot of times they have really good stats, they have really good kits, and ultimately what they do is they can help you become really competitive in PvP, or they can help you speed up your conquering time, so to speak, for PvE. And of course, one of the prime examples would be Gilgamesh, who's a Japanese YouTuber who definitely has footage and proof that you can conquer all PvE content without using any UR units at all. Like, I'm talking about none. Now, some encounters I've watched, they definitely take a little bit longer than your UR counterparts. And I think that's my main point here. While many of us probably obviously are attracted to UR units in this game, and I think that's given the history of all gacha games in general. Most of the time when you see a new gacha game come out, they're advertising in their ads, oh, you're gonna get SSR, you're gonna get UR, you're gonna get the best units, the natural 5 stars, whatever the terminology is for those games. And that's how they get people to be attracted. That's how they get people to spend money to summon for those units. But I think what really let War of the Vision stand out in all that big gacha packing, or the gacha pack of games, if you will, is the fact that you actually do not need a lot of the UR units, or the top units, if you will, to defeat content. And I think one of the good games that are out there on the market is called Arc Knights, and it has similar parallels to this game, because you can actually complete almost all the content in that game, if not all of it, using the lowest rarity possible in that game. You have to figure out what's your playing style, and you have to figure out, is it truly worth your time and effort to really go after those units. Now personally, I was kind of stressed out when Final Fantasy Tactics 1 part 1 came out, because I was so close of finishing my Ramza and my Cid, but unfortunately I couldn't do it. But little did I know they were going to bring in more parts. And I think that's the beauty of this game. They will bring you tons of reruns in the future. You just have to show some patience. But I feel like that's the kind of the problem of all this, is that many people feel like they need to have that instant gratification and get their units built as fast as possible, maxed out as fast as possible during the first run. And when the next run comes around, they don't have to think about it. Or maybe they're going to be worried about summoning and building the newer unit that comes in tagged with the new banner that they're bringing with the rerun. So either way, however you approach the game, I think it's really important to think that you don't actually need all these units. Most of the time, they're just eye candy, they're just Lambos, they're just that hot girl, they're just that hot guy. But who am I to tell you what to do, right? I mean, end of the day, I do what I do and you do what you do as well. We have to make sure that this is still treat it as a game, and you treat it in a day that whatever pleasure you get from this game, or whatever happiness you draw from this game, that needs to be decided by you and you only. But my personal feeling is, I don't think I'm gonna be going after every single limited time units. For example, Yuna looks great. She was doing really well and all this damages, and then of course a few weeks later, people are showing footages that she does one solid damage to units, because ultimately this game is balanced enough that no matter which units you go after, there's perhaps some sort of counter to or some sort of answer to. And I think that's what makes this game so great, is because of the chessing that you have to do. Is that really a word, chessing? Well, I guess it's more like the fighting, the tactics you have to use in terms of whatever you decide to do, right? Whether it be PvE, match play, or arena play, there's always a way to perhaps potentially counter your opponent's teams. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? No matter what limited unit is supposed to be really powerful in this specific moment, there's a high chance that they may not be that powerful later on in the game as well. And that's why I'm a huge emphasizer. I'm a huge guy that emphasizes on building tanks, building supporting units before attackers. After playing Alchemist Co for a good amount of time, I realized that they actually did have a tier listing, and it actually legitimately sort of worked. Is that over time, a lot of the limited units, cash grab units or flavor of the month units at the moment, a few months later, they become pretty much irrelevant. And judging by the way this game is progressing, there's a huge possibility that we may see that maybe 4 years down the road. But so far, after 1 year mark, I think the game is doing exceptionally well in terms of balance. Always trying to bring some of the older units to the forefront and getting them featured. It's a possibility that all of the stuff that I said earlier about, units being outdated, whatever, that actually might be a moot point in this game. So I think it's important to understand that whatever you decide to invest in terms of limited units, there's a possibility they may never be outdated. But just bear in mind, you have to put in the work and the effort to build all these units, to get them up, to perhaps farm their weapon, to farm the vision card, or whatever the case is. And of course, ultimately, you have to realize if this game ever gets to the point where we're reaching like level 150 or 200 or whatever extreme they want to bring us to, you're going to be the one that has to put in all the work for all those limited time units. Personally, I feel like I already have too many limited time units. And I think going forward, I don't know if I really want to work on too many more, because that's just going to be perhaps a lot more work for me. I'm one of those dudes that I want to do the least amount of work to get the most amount of potential out of each situation I'm in. And sometimes you can get away with that. And I think in a game, you should be able to get away with that, because it is supposed to be just entertainment. So I hope this topic really kind of brought forth to the forefront of how people are feeling. And maybe that would shed some light on whether or not you should be summoning for limited time units. And obviously that's the whole purpose of Friday Free Thinking, to get you guys to be engaged in such topics of conversation. I think that's all the time for this video. If you enjoyed my content, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you like it. And as always, take care of yourself and all your loved ones, and I will see you guys tonight in my stream. Nashtaters and his family out here. Peace.